And joining us now to discuss this is the Executive Director of Migration Watch, Dr. Mike Jones. Dr. Jones, welcome to the show. Another tragedy. I believe this is the biggest disaster in the Channel so far this year. And as far as we know, 12 confirmed dead. This was an incident that happened just off the French coast. And Mike, this points to the fact, doesn't it, that this will just continue on and on and on until we do something serious to stop this miserable, miserable human trade.
Yeah, afternoon, Martin. You know, this is a hugely tragic case, and unfortunately, it is just one among many. You know, not just in the English Channel, but also in the Black Sea, the mouth of Istanbul's Bosphorus Strait, where boat crossers have died, and also in the Mediterranean, where irregular migrants have died, making the journey from Libya, Lebanon, and Tunisia. Death, I'm afraid to say, is part and parcel of the illegal migration trade, and it is part and parcel, too, of the lax laws in Europe that encourage these people to cross in the first place, to make a dangerous journey across, you know, choppy and unpredictable waters in tiny makeshift boats. At the end of the day, the people traffickers don't care about life and death, provided that these people have paid their fees. And unfortunately, this disgusting trade is going to continue until we start deporting people and making the people traffickers' business model redundant. But Sir Keir Starmer, I'm afraid to say, is not going to do this.
And it's well worth repeating that fact, Dr. Jones, that the people traffickers, they don't care about life and death. They care about profit. We've seen instances where a 7-year-old girl was trampled to death on a dinghy by adult men scrambling to get on, many of whom haven't paid. And it's just a lawless situation. We know the situation on the coast of France is getting worse. There have been reports this week and last week of police officers coming under sustained attacks, barrage of projectiles being thrown. Now the dinghies are taking off from canals to avoid the beaches. So the French gendarmes are chasing shadows, despite the fact we put £500 million per year their way. What can be done to stop this? Because if the people traffickers don't care about death, if the traffickers themselves only care about profit, and the people boarding these craft will take whatever risk it is they can put themselves through for the chance of getting to Britain, what do we need to do to stop this grotesque trade?
Well, I mean, ultimately, the solution to this is to make their business model redundant. How do you do that? Should you try to smash the gangs, which is what Sir Keir Starmer wants to do? I mean, you can make life uncomfortable for the gangs, but you can't smash them. Ultimately, you need a policy to detain and deport the people who arrive, because that sends a very strong signal that the euros you're spending on crossing the English Channel are going to be completely worthless. So to do this, we need to amend or abolish the Human Rights Act, remove any reference to the European Convention of Human Rights, you know, possibly even withdraw from the Council of Europe, you know, which implies membership of the European Court of Human Rights. And then we need to thrash out deportation policies with various countries. Now, deporting people is going to be very difficult in some cases, but that's where you need agreements with countries like Rwanda, for example. But unfortunately, the Labour Party has mothballed this plan. So my expectation is that this problem is going to get worse.
Now, it's worth pointing out the Labour Party are installing, they say, 100 officers to try and deal with this. They have a new task force to deal with it. They've ruled out any such thing of getting out of the Council of Europe. They've ruled out the European Court of Human Rights as a withdrawal tactic, smashing the gangs. They've tried to do deals on part of the pan-European tour with France, with Germany, and we've seen Giorgia Meloni in Italy also being courted. But these things take time, don't they, if they even come to fruition at all? And isn't the point of the immediacy of interception of the turnback, something that worked in Australia. We saw with Operation Sovereign Borders, the only successful returns policy of its kind anywhere on the planet, and yet there still seems to be reluctance to adopt anything along those lines.
I don't think a pushback policy is suitable for the English Channel because, you know, most of these people aren't crossing in boats, they're crossing in dinghies, and lots of these people will die if you attempt a pushback policy, and border security staff will then be liable for voluntary or involuntary manslaughter. So, I mean, Priti Patel trialed a sort of pushback scheme with jet skis, but obviously that didn't pan out. I mean, ultimately, you need to be able to detain and deport people very quickly. The key thing is you need to amend the Human Rights Act. You need to remove any reference to the European Convention of Human Rights, and then you need to begin a sort of diplomatic policy of negotiating returns agreements and, you know, agreements with third safe countries. You know, we had one with Rwanda, we don't anymore. But the key thing is to actually deport people, because that strikes to the heart and soul of asylum policy. Because if you can't deport people, then you don't have border control. And if you don't have control of your borders, then you don't have control of your country.
And Mike, again, it's worth pointing out that Yvette Cooper has said that the Labour Party has pledged to deport 14,500 illegal asylum seekers by the end of the year. But I guess the point is 7,500 have arrived since the Labour Party got into power. It's more than 23,000, I believe, so far this year alone. So even if that percentile were reached, it still wouldn't scratch the surface, would it?
Well, no, I mean, Yvette Cooper wants to expand detention centre levels, but that's only going to make a difference by a couple of hundred. She wants to return to 2018 levels of deportations, but 2018 deportation levels were considerably down during the early years of the Cameron government. I mean, in the early years of the Cameron government, it was about 46,000. Whereas, you know, 2018 was close to half of that. So, you know, it's small beer at the end of the day. It's not going to make any difference. I mean, the Labour Party do want to fast track deportations to safe countries where the human rights lawyers can't interfere. And I think that's sensible. But the fact of the matter is, most of these people are arriving from countries that are deemed unsafe by the human rights authorities, the NGOs, the blob, if you like, inverted commas. So their plans may make a difference to the margins, but it's not going to stop this.
OK, meanwhile, in Germany, of all places, they've just agreed the first deportation plan to Afghanistan, returning Afghan criminals to the Taliban. Perhaps it's time for a similar approach here. Thanks for joining us. That's the Executive Director of Migration Watch, Dr. Mike Jones. Thank you for your time.